future rely on Prajna Paramita and thereby attain unsurpassed complete perfect enlightenment. Therefore know the Prajna Paramita as the great miraculous mantra, the great bright mantra, the supreme mantra, the incomparable mantra which removes all suffering and is true, not false. Therefore we proclaim the Prajna Paramita mantra, the mantra that says Gate, Gate, Para, Gate, Parasam, Gate, Bodhisattva.
Having chanted the heart of great perfect wisdom sutra, we reverently offer the merit to great benefactor and founder of the doctrine, the original teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha, to the countless Buddhas and Bodhisattvas that permeate the myriad worlds, and to the eternal three jewels in the 10 directions, and to all teachers of the true Dharma who transmitted the flame, that we may repay their compassionate blessings. We further offer this merit to all the Dharma protecting natives, to the Dharma protecting saints, to the earth spirit of this place, to the temple protecting spirits. What we pray for is flourishing of the true Dharma, peace in the land, harmony among all nations, tranquility within the Sangha, wisdom and prosperity for countless supporters, continual turning of the two wheels. May we with all beings realize the Buddha way. meditation of the great compassionate heart running to all beings in the 3 worlds and 6 realms, and especially to Cindy LaRae, Jeremy Jarvis, Kai Bude, Eric and Jue, Alex Preddy, Craig Barnes, Fred Olson, Zen teacher Ava Louise Stanton, and to all those who have died in natural and human-made disasters, including acts of terrorism, violence, political persecution, and war. May they be serene through the transition we call death. We also dedicate this merit to Andrea Beardsley, Coral Mack, Pat Frank, Sonny, Christopher Kuntz, Betty Gordon, Hal Dillon. May the heart of compassion illuminate their lives. We pray that all beings may prosper and all misfortune cease. Zazen. Sutra opening verse.
I'm the Shuso.
Shuso.
Kosei.
Kosei.
Horaku,
Issei,
Christian,
Hojo-san, Panpreet, Eider, Sokai, Joshin, Sarah, Molly, Carrie, Genpo, Jikie, Anyu, Myobun, Onshin, Kisei, Jiko, Kirk, David, Yosei, Jen, Splat, Kosen, Iso, Genjo, Jiho, Zach, Susan, Trevor, Savannah, Noel, Zazen, June, Kishin, Christopher, Sandy, Francis, Liz, Myoan, Danielle, Charles, Cash, Paul, Shinyu, Carl, Colleen, Jackie, Jasmine, Allie, Mariah, Mandy, Genpo, Paul, Jushin, Will, John, Catherine, Shuho, Sean, Sagan, Audrey, Jason, Zachary, Magna, KGN, Jude.
Good morning.
Good morning.
One day, Shenshang was mending his robes when Dong-Shan asked him, "What are you doing?" "Mending my robes," Shenshang replied. "How is it going?" Dong-Shan asked. "Every stitch is the same as the last," Shenshang replied. "We have been traveling together for 20 years, and you still talk like that? How can you be so clueless?" "How do you sew your robes then?" Shenshang asked. "With every stitch, the whole earth is spewing flames." So this is the second talk that I will be giving in a series of 5 talks, which are studying this Koan, the 30th Case of Dong-Shan. It's been a few weeks since I spoke with you all last, and so just to review, the last time we talked about this koan, I discussed the individual themes that come up. We also talked about the individuals that are at the heart of this koan. Dong-Shan, a very important ancestor of our lineage in China in the 8th century. And also Shenshang, his lifelong companion and Dharma brother. The themes that I introduced included the robe and sewing and mending. We discussed a world that is spewing flames, or a world on fire. We also looked at the nature of spiritual friendship, this idea of traveling together. And I also talked about the role that questions play in Zen practice. We also talked about some methods or ways to approach the study of a koan, primarily thinking about how we can build a relationship, kind of an intimacy with a koan, not sort of an extractive attempt at getting meaning or explanation from the text. We talked about how that relationship, as we read the koan over the course of a life of practice, how that relationship changes. We also talked about how to pay attention to both the way that the text changes, but also the literal meaning of the words themselves in the koan, and balancing that with whatever, if you want to call it, symbolism or metaphor emerges through the words. So today, I want to start talking about the theme of the robe and sewing. When we study Buddhist culture, really throughout the entire history of Buddhism, back to India, into China, and Tibet, and Southeast Asia, Korea, Japan, in North America, and in Europe, South America as well, it's really difficult to overstate the importance of the robe. And even when we look at the life of Shakyamuni Buddha, though there are many different accounts of how he came to the robe, it's said that when he left the palace of his upbringing, that the first thing he did was cut off his top knot. The top knot is a bun of hair at the top of his head, which in the cultural sort of context of India sort of referenced his worldly and princely duty. He cut that off. And it said he gathered rags, removed his princely clothing, and put on these rags, which became his first robe. Throughout much of early Buddhism, we see this act repeated many times in early communities. When individuals step forward to become ordained and become part of the renunciate community, they would shave their heads, and they would receive a variety of objects, amongst them a robe, and also a needle and thread. They'd also get alms bowls. They would get I think we call it a water filter, but it was not like a Brita kind of, it was a very basic tube with some fabric through which you could filter water. And we see this even today in our community. Last week, we saw a very beautiful version of this as our Dharma siblings, Onshin and Segan and Myoan, ordained. You saw them cut a bit of their hair and they receive a robe. So with all this emphasis on objects, in particular the robe we're talking about today, this might strike you as somewhat materialistic, and in some ways, you may come to Buddhist practice thinking, am I not supposed to be like letting go of my grasping of these objects, or of the phenomena which we call objects in the world? And I would agree with you, only if we think about the robe as a thing to grasp. When we went through the ordination ceremony last week, we chanted together, and maybe this was the first time you heard these words, or maybe they're words you chant every day, but we chanted together the robe verse. And listen to these words. I think for those of you who maybe chant this as part of your daily practice, for those of you who aren't familiar, when we receive the robe and we put it on, we chant the robe verse, and then every morning during the early morning practice, when we put on the robe, we chant these words. But listen, they're very profound, and in fact, it's said that when Dogen went to China, Dogen Zenji being the founder of our Zen School, when he went to China and heard the robe verse chanted, he wept. I think about this often because as someone who chants this every day, I think I forget the profundity that is expressed here. How great the robe of liberation, a formless field of merit, wrapping ourselves in Buddha's teaching, we free all living beings. A formless field of merit. Even our efforts to grasp at this robe is thwarted immediately in this language of formlessness, right? So though the robe appears to us as a length of cloth of various sizes, it's boundless. Yes, it has no edge. And in that, it covers all phenomenon. It is all-inclusive, and it begrudges nothing. I think it's very interesting when we get the chance. I know many of you have gone through this process recently of finding fabric to sew your rakusu for our upcoming Jukai ceremony, which is a precept receiving ceremony. It's very interesting. Dogen, in his text, the instructions for the robe, the Kesakudoku, he says something very compelling about this formlessness and about the materiality or the material of the robe. He says, as to the material of the robe, we use silk or cotton as it suits us. Cotton is not necessarily pure any more than silk is impure. And to choose silk because you look down on cotton is unwarranted, laughable even. The usual approach of the Buddhas has been, beyond any doubt, to consider waist cloth for the robe as the best. This is very interesting, waist cloth. In a way, for something to be so tended to throughout Buddhist culture, something maybe even revered in our practice, why would it be instructed by the Buddhas that waist is somehow the best? I think what it points to, I'm sure what it points to, is that this formless field does not get created, and it's not locked up somewhere special or sacrosanct or outside of the world. The cloth is already in the world. Buddha's teaching is already available in the world, and it's our responsibility when we sew these bits of cloth that come together to tend to that truth, that there isn't some kind of special or unique or separate robe. It exists already. I think it's very interesting also when we look at the Sanskrit in the story of the Buddha coming to this first robe. The word in Sanskrit that is used to describe this cloth, this specific waist cloth, is pamsukala, which literally translates to dust heap of cloth. For me, I think also about the notion of the skandhas. The skandhas are the sort of the sense gates through which we perceive the world. And skandha, so the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind. These ways we perceive the world are also considered piles. The word skandha also means like a pile. And so there's a very, very deep relationship here between the robe, this material that exists already in the world that is Buddha's teaching, this pile of dust, and the way that we perceive the world, also in the Sanskrit, a pile, a kind of heap of dust. So wearing the robe is both putting on a specific object. It does appear to us as a specific object, but that in this object, the whole world is showing up as what we tend to and what we care for. And here in the Koan, Shenshang is mending this formless field. It's kind of a conundrum that on the one hand, something that is formless without bounds, that goes beyond, could also need mending. You know? In a way, what Shenshang is doing is very practical. Right? He's taking care of the practicality of being a physical being in the world that may, over many years of practice, wear down this robe of his. Caretaking and mending and tending and cultivating are challenging notions for us, I think, in modern society. As I mentioned before, we have a very almost casual relationship with textiles or cloth as we live in industrialized society. This was not always the case in human history. Really, before the Industrial Revolution, all kinds of cloth were considered very precious. Even cloth that would be discarded would only be discarded after it had been used basically to threads. Right? And those of you who are engaged in any kind of textile craft or making, you know that this preciousness comes from time. Mm-hmm. There is no way to make cloth quickly. It requires, whether you're knitting or weaving, line by line, continuous patience every day. Each stitch indeed is the same as the last. And because of the growth of industrialization coming out of Europe into North America and then the rest of the world, we've really lost that sense of what that material is like, right? In many ways, this is true for all kinds of things we encounter on a day-to-day basis. We don't see the hands that weave or build or take care of. They're deferred and kind of outside of our consciousness most of the time. And I don't think you need a specific practice in sewing or weaving or textiles to know the really deep truth of this challenge of caretaking and tending. Also, in our society, we tend to have a very fraught relationship. And I mean by our society, again, I mean in North America in 2026, we have a fraught relationship with the role of caretaker. Right? This is often seen as not the main character of the story. Right? We want to be a hero, the warrior, the archetypes that are about active, changing the world in a way that is direct and new. Caretaking is very different. Right? It requires time, it requires patience, it is often not seen. And yet we have to do it. As I say, you don't need a practice in sewing to know this deeply. Just take any particular thing you care about in your life. Yeah? Maybe it's a good friendship, a relationship. Maybe it is your home, where you live, right? Maybe it is a small animal in your life. You don't just care for them once. You do it again and again and again. It demands a daily relationship. Every stitch the same as the last. I also think this is challenging because we hope in some ways that we can care for something just to fix it. When I think about relationships of mine that, for whatever reason, have been damaged or have been challenged, my hope is always that I can do one thing. I can have one conversation. I can have one interaction that will mend that, and then we'll just be okay. And I've never found that to be true. And I know that as you laugh because you know that as well. It takes time. It takes investment of caretaking. It's a willingness to show up in our lives, even when no one will notice, and even when we cannot predict or have any guarantee about the success. So yes, I water my plants, and I get to enjoy every now and again a blossom emerges, but there really is no guarantee. And Maybe I'm just a very bad plant parent, but I also have the expectation that that plant will die, that all the relationships we love will end, and despite that, we take care. So you don't need to sow to know this, but Shenchang is sowing. As Shenchang sows, his good friend points out that also the earth is spewing flames. While this is a conundrum that may seem like a correction, and I say conundrum, I will define that a little bit more in a moment. The paradox here, I think, has something to do with scale. So that on the one hand, Shenchang stitches each one an act of dutiful caretaking is so small compared to this image or this notion of the whole earth spewing flames. This is a conundrum. And the way that that manifests in a life really, I think, is at the very core question of spiritual practice. That is, how do I reconcile, how do I encounter, how do I even begin to think that the tiny acts, the infinite smallness in my life can have any value, importance, or impact at the scale of a world on fire? When Hojo-san frequently asks, are you at the end of your rope? I think this question can get you directly there. How can the smallness of our lives have any ultimate impact on a world spewing flames? Physicists tell us that it's at the end of the rope that we can actually go the farthest, when we're swinging through the air. This conundrum, this conflict of scale, I think, should be very familiar to many of you. In fact, it should be familiar to all of you because we just, in our chanting service, vowed some impossible tasks in terms of scale. As I say, it should be familiar when we think about the Bodhisattva vows. Yeah? Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to free them. I mean, end them. Both free and so on and so on. There's a conflict of scale here, right? How can I, one being, free all beings? How can I, as one being, end inexhaustible delusion? And yet we vow this over and over and over again in our practice. What is so interesting about what Dong-Shan says, with every stitch the whole earth is spewing flames, is that though it sounds kind of helpless on the one hand, right? It sounds kind of impossible. I actually think it's very optimistic. He doesn't say that it doesn't matter, that each stitch doesn't matter in a world of flames, nor does he say that despite each individual stitch, the earth spews flames. He says that every stitch is involved in this earth spewing flames. I think it's possible that in a life, as we tend to the practicalities of living, we sometimes get challenged by this dualistic view, right? We try and separate the scale of what is happening on the planet from the details of our lives. And I think this is what Dong-Shan is refuting here. that no, actually, the bombs are falling. Actually, the glaciers are disappearing. Species are becoming extinct. Amongst that, we fall in love. We celebrate birthdays. We laugh together. These are all flames. These are the flames of your burning heart in the world. And the more we take on the practice of tending, the more that we take on the practice of addressing the dishes piling up in the sink, the friend that needs that phone call, that email, the more we bring our careful and mindful attention to these details, actually we become more and more attuned to the nature of suffering and joy. In fact, these things can't be separated. You can't do one and not begin to deal with the other. Now, what you do exactly, what is your work to engage in the world on fire or in a world spewing flames, I don't know. And despite all the tending we might do to this or that detail, or the fixing we try and enact in life, despite all of that, we know we will make mistakes. It won't always work out the way we plan. But that's why there's another stitch, right? That's why there's another step to take. That's why there's another breath to breathe. It's a practice, right? It requires time and patience. It requires our constant attention. I want to say, in closing, it's so important that I emphasize you do not need to wear a robe for this to be true in your life. You do not need to walk a path that leads you to an object like the robe or the alms bowls or a water filter or cutting your shura. These things are beautiful. They're gifts. They're an offering from our lineage, from our ancestors, from the Buddha, so that they can remind us. And some of us just need more reminding than others, potentially. On the gate, Hojo-san has written this calligraphy that says, sometimes a Buddha appears so we can remember that all beings are Buddha. Right? Sometimes a robe appears so we remember that the field of merit is formless, boundless, and all-inclusive. Now, if you are very inspired by the robe, this is also important. That in a way, in our tradition, this process of shaving the head, of putting on a robe, the language is quite charged. We call it the vow of disfigurement. That in some way the form of a person is changed. And that is a generosity in that it's a reminder of these possibilities for the community. It's a reminder of these possibilities for the individual as well. I once got into a very interesting argument with my dear Dharma brother Joichi. And those of you who know Joichi, he's very quiet, but he also lives in certain extremes. Right? He has a gift of conviction about what he believes. And he said, as we were arguing about form versus formlessness, about grasping the robe versus not grasping the robe, he said this beautiful thing, which is perhaps the generosity of the Buddhas is that they give us forms to hold on to so that we can learn to let go. You'll have to ask him what that means when he returns from training. But I think in this light, in this notion that the robe appears both as an object, but also as a manifestation of the whole world. If we believe that is true, then I think the words of the Koan take on a different dimension. One day, Shenshang was mending his robes when Dong-Shan asked him, "What are you doing?" "Mending my robes," Shenshang replied. "How is it going?" Dong-Shan asked. "Every stitch is the same as the last," Shenshang replied. "We have been traveling together for 20 years, and still you talk like that? How can you be so clueless?" "How do you sew your robes then?" Shenshang asked. "With every stitch, the whole earth is spewing flames." So I'm very happy to receive your questions and try and respond.
So I read the Koan over the last couple of weeks, and then also as I heard you say it this morning at the beginning of your talk, the word clueless stands out, and the word talk. So I found myself really wanting to defend Shenshang against the accusation of cluelessness. And I appreciate how you talked about that paradox today. But I'm just wondering, is there some other translation for clueless? Am I getting too attached to a judgment that I have around that particular word? I'm getting a bit caught up on it.
You know, I'm sorry, was there?
Yes, that's it. Yeah.
I'm trying to get my hands Daoren has the Chinese text, and I'm very curious to look at it. I don't know if there are other. Most of the translations I look at have some formation of clueless in there. Ignorant sometimes comes up. And I mentioned this a few weeks ago. Actually, I think Molly, I can't remember who asked, there's a lot of reaction to this word clueless. I understand the impulse to defend Shenshang. I also think that as we study the Koan, it's important to also think of each line as offering truth. That it's not really like here's this engagement and then there's only one right side, but the whole Koan is like a fractal. That each word, each sentence has truth in it. That cluelessness, and I don't know if this is other people's experience, but as a teacher of adults and as what I like to think of as a lifelong student of many things, I sometimes think that our cluelessness is an extraordinary gift. Yeah. I remember I never learned to ride a bike as a child. I had an older brother. My dad tried with him, and then after that, he sort of gave up. And so I think I was maybe 23 or 24 when I learned to ride a bike. And I moved to Portland. Sorry, I'm going on quite a long time about this. But anyway, I moved back to Portland, and I sort of became really good friends with a bunch of wrench turners, like real bike enthusiasts. And when they learned I didn't know how to ride a bike, they just took me in to their community. They built me a bike at the parking lot. And I remember, I almost want to cry thinking about it, just being held in my cluelessness by these people I trusted. And what a gift for, our faces hurt from smiling after that. And I think what a gift my cluelessness was then for myself and for my community. Now, it's not always that way. Right? Sometimes ignorance is dangerous, and there are many facets to cluelessness. But I'd like to think that Dong-Shan and Shenshang have an intimacy that is like those wrench turners teaching me how to ride a bike. That the cluelessness is actually a form of intimacy. Yeah.
Shuso, I want I'm going to press on the point that, I'm sorry, Liz, I don't remember your Dharma name. I'm trying to, oh, that's right, thank you. I think there's almost something unseemly or even sophomoric about Dong-Shan's point. It is, it's almost, this is an overstatement, but it's almost a defilement to, like, you know, construe it thus. And I feel very much aligned with Sung-Shan. You know, obviously there are these tensions and paradoxes playing out, but that's all. I just wanted to explore that idea that there's something of the almost too much about Dong-Shan's particular take, his hot take.
His hot take. You know, as I mentioned, when we spend time with the Koan, its different colors reveal themselves. And I have spent a lot of time being angry at the punitive quality of how Dong-Shan is speaking. It is interesting, though, and Darren actually shared this with me over tea a few days ago, that the Chinese talks of, it's like a volcano. Like the specific image that comes up is volcanic. Many of the examples of a world on fire that I have brought up today are more man-made, right? The bombs falling, climate change, etc. But he's talking about something even beyond that, right? And it's like a force of nature, the volcano. We can't stop, no matter what you do, you know, it can't be stopped. And I know you don't really have a question there, so I'm just kind of speaking, that this is a kind of cliff we face in practice. We often talk about, in our diligence of practice, we still face this cliff. You can name it all kinds of things, death, right, suffering. It's not going to move no matter what we do. And so yeah, there's something sophomoric. It's kind of like, I kind of have an image of him being, I don't know, I never played team sports, but kind of like he's like sizing up, or there's something kind of intimate and rough about it. And I think that this makes sense in Dong-Shan's life, right? He lived during a time of extraordinary persecution in Buddhist communities. And I think that he was aware of what is at stake for himself and for his community. So I don't know, maybe it is right that the words should be harsh, right? The cliff is harsh, the world is harsh. But also, it's almost as though we need people in our lives who can be harsh in a way that's like, hey, I see you, and I don't know about what you're doing right now. Let us be close enough that I can share that concern with you. I think that quality is in there too. Good spiritual friendship.
I don't know, my take on it, I feel like my job is like I'm on fire all the time. It's just way too much and overwhelming all the time. And then I go home and just sit and check out and just retreat, like a hermit. And I feel like there's like, it's like these two extremes, like nothing matters, I just want to escape, I just don't want to deal with anything at all. And then I'm forced to deal with the world and face the world, and like that feels like the world is on fire. And then the Buddha taught like the middle path, and I have a really hard time like staying in there instead of just vacillating extreme to extreme. So it really feels like it's speaking a lot to what I'm struggling with right now. These kinds of, I tend to kind of vacillate between these extreme places instead of being able to kind of find the middle of the fire. Yes, everything's on fire, and also I can't just check out, because I really just want to run away and check out and like live it and like, you know, like a hut in the woods. That's really what I want to do. But I know that that's not real either. Like that my brain will come with me and that's enough already. So I don't know, I just was like, for me, it's the hard part, and I think Sangha is helpful, like to be able to find that middle path. Yes, it's on fire, and also the joy, and to be able to appreciate and experience the joy, and face the hardships. It's a difficult thing for me.
I mean, no part of it is easy. It's never easy. I'd say also that the importance of caretaking and tending one's life involves rest. Right? You can't just keep pouring water on the plant or like dumping fertilizer on it. Like sometimes you need to leave it alone and let it grow of its own accord and inspiration. I also would say that the frustration that you have is another example of a heart on fire in the world, right? If it were just like, oh, it's easy, I know what to do and I can just let it go, right? I can just put it down. That would be like doing one thing to fix a lifelong relationship. You know, that it is the gift that there is another stitch and another stitch and another step and another step and another breath and another breath. I mean, I wish it could be easier because I think we're all exhausted. And you're right to say that's why Sangha is there, right? We'll talk about this in 2 Dharma Talks in the future, this traveling together. And that's why refuge, that's why we use the word refuge. We have time for maybe 2 more.
Could you say a little more about the image of volcanic fire? Because turning, because volcanic is both very destructive and very generative. Like we think of the island created by the volcano. So say a little.
I mean, I think that's exactly right. That's exactly right. It is so easy for us maybe I shouldn't say easy. I understand the impulse to read the Koan as about destruction. We were very inclined towards that. I think Dong-Shan must have also been inclined to that, seeing the persecution of Buddhists in his time. But the other way that we read or can understand the flame is that it is like the emergence of phenomena, right? Like that each phenomenon, the flower blooming, right, the laughter of a friend, those are flames as well. And I mentioned this, I think the last time I was speaking, that the thing that is most dangerous is potentially just putting out all the fires, right? Cutting ourselves off from seeing the suffering and the joy. Like we interrogate the nature of joy and suffering in our practice, right? We are trying to see them as the creative force and the force of loss and grief and suffering, that they're not separate. Yeah, the volcano. My father was a geologist, and he was very excited when Mount St. Helens erupted. You could see this is the power that we prostrate upon when we bow, right? This earth that is in this process. But you're exactly right. Yes, but I think we had one over here, and then
maybe it'll be quick. I'm a little tied up on the needle and the thread. Can you say anything about that or explore that?
Yes, there are many things I could say about. Is there any? Is there a little bit of a?
There's a piece. I mean, both of them. You talked about the robe earlier. You both share the robe. they both are sharing this tool, and it also kind of binds it all together. That's where I'm at. It's like, how does that work in I don't know, I don't really exactly have the words or...
I mean,
we could put it in maybe in the frame of vow or practice is kind of where I'm at with.
yeah. As I mentioned before, the tradition of sewing itself, the word that we use sutra, it means to sew, right? So that there is this very profound relationship between the teaching as it appears to us as text or as words, and also the physical practice of sewing. Those things are deeply integrated, and we see that echoed in many, many, many spiritual traditions in the world, right? That sewing, this sort of caretaking, this attention, is like a mirror to the heart that we have in practice. But there are other, there are other things I think about. In very ancient times, we think of sewing needles often as these steel objects with an eyelet, but often they were made of bone, like the bones of birds, very fine bones. And I often think about, as we are sewing cloth, right, the needle breaks through the surface and is visible, and it goes under the cloth and is invisible, and it comes up again and is visible, and how much like our life that is, that part of it we can see and we can act. The other part, we have to trust something that is beyond our perception, right? And when you're sewing, it's like this over and over and over again. And that the bone needle of a bird was once in flight, right? That we have this language that awakening is like the path of birds, right? Again, this sort of invisible, this physical but also invisible kind of evocation. These are just pretty images that come to my mind on the one hand when you ask about the needle, but I also have to believe that this is true. Maybe in the way that when we sew, we think we're doing just this physical or material thing. Maybe when we sit Zazen, we think we're just doing this physical kind of gesture, but so much of what is actually being revealed there is mysterious and unseen, and we get to directly touch that when we use a sewing needle. Okay.
If possible. I also hear in that koan the part about we've been traveling together for 20 years, and you're still talking like that. And so when I hear the Buddha sitting there under the tree, becomes enlightened and becomes a teacher, and is an ever-flowing fountain of self-expression that brings everyone in. So Dong-Shan saying, 20 years and you still are just one stitch after another? You're a Buddha, you're a Buddha, and your expression is part of being a Buddha. That's just, and I'm honoring your expression today, so beautiful, so enlightening. Appreciate it.
I mean, I would say also, that sometimes we talk about this all-inclusiveness. We talk about this formlessness, no boundaries, and it's kind of like happy-go-lucky. It's like a kumbaya sort of moment, so to speak. But the admonishment or the harshness, this expression of cluelessness, if we really believe in this all-inclusive field, part of it will be challenging. Part of it will be horrible, I'd say. But this is the whole path, right? It's not that we get to pick and choose that what beings are involved in the awakening of all beings. This has that same quality.
Yeah.
announcements?
I have an announcement. My name is Molly, and I'm on the Reading Community Committee. And we are still putting together Sangha circles that will start meeting for 8 weeks, beginning the week of March 30th. So if you are interested in spending some low-key time chatting, eating, hanging out with other folks from Sangha, and because for some of us a big group can be really hard, it's nice to have a smaller room to be in. My email is in the bulletin, and you can just let me know that you're interested. We are making them around folks' schedule, so it's not at a particular time this moment, but we'll try and make it work for everyone interested. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Shuho, and Mandy and I welcomed you to the temple today. If you have a question about the temple or the service, come find one of us when we break for coffee here in a little bit. Or if you'd just like to have a conversation with somebody, we're happy to chat with you. Thank you.
Okay, I have an announcement. My name is Shindu, and the Eco-Dharma Group and Kanzeon Committee are sponsoring the tree planting project again this year. And the third part, or actually the fourth part this year, is we're going to be planting trees in this neighborhood to increase the tree canopy in this neighborhood on Saturday at 9 o'clock from Berkeley Park. They want us, the Friends of Trees who we're working with, want us to, they want to get a head count. And so if you could sign up on the bulletin board, there's a sheet on the bulletin board, I will get in touch with you with any details. And if you have any questions, ask. Thank you.
My name is Zazen, and I would just like to express gratitude. There are so many offerings that happen here at the temple, some seen, some unseen. And I just want to share a few of those things that keep this temple alive and thriving and beautiful practice ground for us all. Before we even arrive, the hall is set up. The Dharma Talk has been prepared. The flowers are prepared. The braziers are all cleaned. Incense is laid out. Teachers give instruction for people that are new. And then we all arrive and gather together and chant and sit Zazen and create this beautiful Sangha. And there's something about receiving all of these offerings with this open heart that is this, feels to me like this deeper practice of generosity. And so gratitude for more deeply seeing that there is no differentiation between giver, receiver, and gift. Thank you all.